Going on, everyone? It's your boy Adi here with another episode of the AU Show, your go-to for golden gems. Today, I have the pleasure of bringing on my brother from San Jose State. We both are in the same fraternity, Delta Sigma Phi, and he's based out of Orange County. He is the founder, the CEO, and visionary of Next Level. Everyone, welcome in Julian Miramontes. What's going on, bro?
What's up, man? I'm excited to be here. I love what you're doing, and I can't wait to dive into everything we've got planned.
For sure. First of all, I just want to give you your flowers too, man. I think again, a lot of people will talk about starting something. Very few people will actually execute, last a little bit, and actually continue to grow. So I'm really proud of your growth. I just want to make sure you heard that off the top. So
Thank you, man. Thank you. Likewise. I mean, I'm excited. It's great to see the development of what you're doing here, and again, I think you're bringing a lot of value to people. So I'm ready to dive in, man.
much love, man. Cool. Well, to me, Julian, I always love to take it from the top. Just go a little throwback, just really get to know the person as we progress. And so, to me, man, I knew you from college, and you've grown a lot since. But let's say like if I were to run into Julian like 7, 8 years old, what was the personality type like? Right? I think to me, like kids come in a couple different spectrums. Like you got the troublemakers. The principal has your
Right.
parents on speed dial. Like up to no good. You got the class clowns. You have the ones who are just go about their business, do their
Mhm.
homework, say hi to everyone, don't create any chaos, or even another archetype I haven't talked about. So I guess what was Julian like at that age?
Yeah, man. Growing up, I was a kid always trying to fit in.
Hmm.
I was always trying to fit in. I was always trying to, it was hard for me to get friends in the beginning. I was very shy all the time. I was a shy kid as well. And that's kind of how my relationships were a little bit. You know, Not a lot of people had a chance to kind of get to know me personally very much. I was always to myself. I was used to being to myself growing up. And so, man, that's how it was, as I around those ages there. Luckily enough for myself, I was able to, develop better over time with relationships and, speaking to people and things like that. But that's how it was, man. Super shy to myself for most of the time, just trying to, fit in with the rest.
For sure. I mean, that's a lot of people. I think like, especially when you're like in new environments at that age, you're just trying to like catch a feel for what is this all about? And see where do I fit in? Because I think we always want to feel like we fit in, but like at that age specifically, you don't really have any point of references. You're just trying your best. And so I know obviously, since I've known you and even before then, you were big into sports and athletics, right? Which, plays a part into who you are today. But I'm curious, like, what was the first sport that you actually fell in love with? Where you were like, that was the one thing you would play after school, like with friends? Like, what was that first intro to sports for you?
For myself, it was basketball. Basketball was my first love. I grew up playing basketball. My dad, when he was younger, he tried to pursue basketball as like a professional career, playing overseas and stuff like that. And, it unfortunately ended short for himself. So he saw his first son and was like, you know what, I couldn't live my dream, so I'm gonna force you to live mine. And that's how that developed over time. But luckily, I enjoyed what I was doing. Basketball taught me so many different life lessons. I'm sure we're going to get into some of those with time, but that was everything. I love sports though in general. I played, t-ball and stuff, football growing up too. But basketball was my main thing if I had to choose one. I loved just sports, martial arts as well when I was very, very young but it was that's kind of how it panned out throughout my life. That's the thing that I cling to the most for sure was basketball, 100%.
Hey man, nothing like blacktop lunchtime hoops. Like that. Nothing beats that. We all grew up at that time where Kobe, God rest his soul, was at his apex, and so anytime you had a piece of paper you're trying to throw in the recycle bin, you yelled Kobe. Though I
That's it.
totally relate to that.
Yeah.
And so yeah, man. So you mentioned that your dad had professional athlete aspirations that he was pursuing, and so you were around sports growing up. I think I'm curious for you. Was there like outside of sports, like what drew your interest to where, like, for example, at that age, if someone was to peg the famous question of what do you want to be when you grow up, like what would you have given at that time as
It
an answer?
was it was the NBA, man, right off the bat. I mean, I feel like that's every kid's dream too,
Right.
what they go into, right? It's always, I wanna play sports professionally. So that's how it was for myself, and I was really chasing that growing up, though. I was really chasing that. I was training, like, my ass off every single day, like my life depended on it. But I loved what I was doing, and like I said before, it taught me so much about discipline, about focus, about being competitive all the time. And you're able to see, just like going to the gym, that muscle develop over time and slowly starts to bleed into other aspects of your life. And that's kind of how I started to develop my lifestyle over time, it was all rooted in basketball, all those life lessons. And I feel like sports teaches you so much, right? It puts, especially basketball, right? It's just like, when it's you on the court, there's not that many other people. You have to understand how to develop as a team, but also internally with yourself. There's times where, you're going to have to put out a fire, so to say, when you're playing, or boost yourself up mentally. There's a lot of mental games that I've learned from sports going into business. And so that's how, my life transitioned, man. It was the root of everything, for sure.
Absolutely, man, dude. I mean, like, sports really teaches you a lot of lessons, and I agree with that. I'm just curious, I think if you ask a lot of entrepreneurs, I think whether it's like, Mark Cuban, other folks, there was like some inkling of that hustle, right, at an early age. Maybe they weren't exactly selling baseball cards or selling newspapers, but there was just something there. They're like, okay, I just view the world a little differently in the sense I see opportunities where other people don't see it. Right. So was there any inklings? Was there any of that initial hustle at a younger age before you dove into next level at a later stage, which we'll get into, or I guess was the next level the first crack at anything?
No, I grew up with a sense of that. Really, I mean, again, playing sports since I was young, that was a very pivotal moment in my life. And I'm glad that I did all of that, because I started to understand the importance of like self motivation and personal development through that. Growing up, though, business wise or entrepreneurial wise, I started a car wash business
Hey,
young, just myself. Well, it was myself and a neighbor of mine.
hey,
We had
joint
to be,
venture.
yeah, exactly. We had to be like 10, 12 years old or something like that. Walking around, the neighborhood or different houses randomly. We got the little towels, we got a bucket, and we list flyers everywhere we could, all the different cross streets, everything. And we just go door knocking. And we'd ask people if they wanted their cars washed. And, they'd see these little kids, and luckily they gave in to us. I forgot how much we charged, like 15, $20 a whole car, but that's how it was. So we were just going around together, just washing cars. And I remember I got my first like $20 bill, and I was like, man, this is everything. Like, this is great. And I wanted to get more. I became addicted to the growth of that. Unfortunately, though, it failed soon after, probably a month after or so, maybe 2 months after. It was a funny story. My friend and I, when we went to a house, so we, knocked on the door and we asked them, hey, do you want any of your cars washed or anything? And so they luckily said yes. They had this, I don't know, Toyota SUV or something like that. It was funny because we didn't bring any water. We brought a bucket, some soap, and towels. We had to use your water.
Right.
So if you had a water bill, we were going to run that thing up. It was, so we went to the side of the house or wherever the hose was, and we turned it on, and we were washing the car, and we finished the whole job. We collect our $20 each or so, and then we leave.
Right.
On the flyer, there was one of our parents' phone numbers there, and the homeowner called that phone number to complain about us because we forgot to turn on the water or turn off the water. And so their water just kept running
Oh
the whole
boy.
night. And after that, we were like, you know what? I'm gonna cash in my coins. That's it for me. And so I was like, you know what? On to the next thing, on to the next thing, on to sports. But that was a little moment where I realized, you can actually create something, anywhere you are in life, you can create something of yourself. And so although that is a extreme example, it kind of, can bleed into other people's lives for sure. But that was my first little moment where I kind of had a sense of creating something out of nothing and being able to make money from it, which was cool.
I love it, man. I think everyone has that start. And so I'm just curious for you, growing up, when it
Yeah.
comes to, like business, mindset and money, like was that something that was talked about heavily, like in your house, or was it more like you just saw how your parents moved and like that inspired you to, take those principles and, playing sports, like those two really just shaped who you were?
It wasn't really talked about heavily. I kind of just learned that over time through watching other people online. Nowadays there's so much free information where literally anybody at any given time can be your mentor. It's actually insane how much free information is out there. And so, for a lot of those people who are might be listening and are just curious on where to start or who to listen to, there's tons of info. I mean, I started everything off of YouTube, man. I mean, it's crazy the amount of free information that's out there. And if you just dial in, stay focused, you can make anything happen by just pure execution, action over everything. And so for myself, I got to learn a lot of that stuff by doing it. Action is my number one like success factor, no matter, whatever else I do over anything, journaling, whatever, if you meditate or whatever, it's just action will bring you those results sooner. It'll teach yourself a whole lot of different lessons. And so for myself, it was really just going out there and trying something, seeing what happens, getting those cuts, those necessary cuts, of the world of the business world. And so that's how I learned a lot of like different things about money, about entrepreneurship and stuff like that. And of course, you see other people online. And again, if you're dialed in with those guys, luckily through social media, we can see so much. And so I just took advantage of it.
That's how you gotta do it, man, especially now in the world of AI, right? Like, I mean, you can
Oh
literally
yeah.
you're just a couple prompts away, if not one prompt from
Yeah.
going from "Have an idea, give me a game plan on how to execute." Like, I literally was doing this for my sister earlier today. So, yeah, it's definitely
That's all.
possible, and I love that, and so I think moving along, right, so I think let's fast forward. So, sports, you're pursuing that through
Yep.
college, and so we get, to the college phase of Julian, and, like, for me and, like, a lot of other people, right?
Mhm.
People usually, like, the goal is in college to, get your degree, build up some relevant, internship experience, or just get experience to help land that first full time job. Right. That's usually the path that most
Yeah.
people aspire and try to take graduating from college. And so I know around the time you were wrapping up college and you were actually graduating was around, I'm sure next level was brewing in your mind to when you were like, I want to scale it. So I guess what went into that balance? 'Cause I'm sure like, you pursued college with like a certain path, and I'm sure there were certain expectations
Mm.
placed on Julian, right? To like go
Yeah.
down a certain path. So how did you navigate that when, pretty much everyone else around you, is focused on going a different way? So like, what was that for Julian?
Yeah, man. I mean, part of that transition was listening to my gut and just having an unwavering belief in myself and what I wanted to do in life. And that was the driving force of everything for me. So, to backtrack a little bit, what happened was with me personally, I, played sports, loved basketball and all that stuff. And even when I was young, that was the biggest introduction into personal development. There was a time when I was like in 7th or 8th grade or something like that, trying out for a team, and I did horrible, and I was very down on myself, and I heard one of the coaches there was like, "Yeah, you need some more motivation in you." And I was like, "Motivation? I understand what that means, but like, I took that home. It kept like staying in my mind, and so next thing you know, I open up YouTube and I just type in motivation, and I just watch all these compilations, right? And so after seeing these different things, these different, things all over YouTube, these inspirational videos. The way it made me feel after watching that was so self-empowering. And for myself, because I really cared about the internal and self-development, I understood that hey, I need to master myself and not worry, especially about what other people are thinking about me. And that's how I was able to. And I'm sure we're going to get into some more of those details. But for myself, to answer your question, how was it? Balancing all opinions, even family or whatever, or everybody else's path. For myself, I had to first master my own internal, battles, right? What's between the ears matters most. And so when I got that down, I was able to be secure enough in myself to be like, you know what, this is what I want to do. I'm going to stop at nothing to be able to execute upon this, despite anybody else's opinion of me. And trust me, I heard everybody was telling me to not. And I mean, to that point, everybody had a reason to. I was not in a position to pursue anything right off the bat. I did not have excess capital to invest in a business. It was all bootstrapped. I was working 2 jobs at restaurant bussing tables. I wasn't even a waiter, buddy. I wasn't even a waiter. I couldn't. I
Damn.
didn't have I couldn't memorize the menus. And so I was a busser cleaning up tables, and I was working at a front desk at a gym up in San Jose. And I just scraped up enough money to make my first order, a bunch of shirts that didn't fit. And I'm sure you had a chance to experience some of that. And then I made
Yep.
some shorts, and then people loved the shorts. And I was like, you know what? Maybe this can be something. And then I kind of self taught everything through YouTube, how to do everything. But part of that was just you have to be willing to take risks and bet on yourself to go even deeper into this, because trust me, I've gone through through hell and back with this thought and this mindset of no matter what you do in this world, everybody unfortunately, despite what you may believe, I mean, me personally, I do believe that we live this one life. So you have to, like, if you believe in the universe or a creator or whatever, just you owe it to yourself to be able to put your best foot forward in whatever it is that you want to do. And you cannot let other people's opinion sway any of that. I mean, it's almost like that why not me mindset. If people have been able to come from worse, right? Far worse, I'm pretty sure I can make something happen of myself. right? I mean, so it's a little bit of those different things. There's this, I think it's called I'm sure you're familiar, and some of the listeners are familiar with like Alex Ramosi, right? He's
Yep.
got this thing called the grandfather frame. If you've heard of that before, right? It's kind of thinking about your future self when you're 80, 90 years old and giving your younger self, your current self, your present self, advice from your older self, right? And so it's kind of just really going deep inside of your mind and being like, man, if I'm your age, what are your biggest regrets? Is it that you lived up to other people's opinion? Is it that, you did what your mom was telling you, your dad was telling you, your uncles, whatever it might be, your friends were telling you to do? Or is it, man, I regret the fact that I didn't just go balls to the wall and just try to do it, do whatever I wanted to do. So again, it's a very deep kind of, internal thing for myself, but that's what the process was like because again, I had a bunch of people telling me otherwise. Trust me. But that's kind of how it started. And I was like, you know what, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna go for it. And luckily it worked out, so that's great.
For sure. Man, there's so much to unpack from that. So we're gonna rewind a little bit, but no, I appreciate you being real, man. Because I think like a lot of times, like again, social media is great for inspiration and education in some contexts, but a lot of times, like people nowadays will just say anything and everything, and you have to really actually have some, critical thinking to actually assess, okay, like A, is this someone I want to listen to? B, is what they're saying making sense, like to an extent. So I'm glad that you pointed it out. But yeah, people's opinions, man, that's something that will rob everyone of their dreams. And I don't know about you, Percy. A lot of people's opinions, like minus my parents, who have supported me throughout my life, they haven't paid my bills. So you gotta look at it from that perspective. And so yeah, you talked about doing whatever it takes, right? And props to you, because again, a lot of people, they have big dreams, which you should. You get one crack at it, but like not so many people
Mhm.
I know would really actually work two jobs. One, not just to survive if they're in a bind, but two, to fund their dreams. Because why does it? I mean, the optics, right? Like, do I really want to be seen as doing that? And people just don't understand what vision means. So I guess during that period, like, what kept you going through doing that to be able to support that initial order?
Yeah, it was when you're bootstrapping any company, I mean, I'm telling you, it's 90% mental, like a 90% mental, especially for myself, what everybody loves to call a saturated market when in reality,
Yeah.
I mean, everything in this world is just about saturated. But for myself, the thing that got me through like that first order was just the belief that I can actually make this and turn this into something. Because there's been a lot of times, where it went left when I thought it would go right. And you have to just, part of bootstrapping any company. I mean, it's probably the biggest contributor to self-development that probably anybody will go through because I mean, if you fail, it's on you. Like everything is on you. It's not on anybody else. It's all your fault no matter what happens. So again, it was just a lot of mental, man. It was a lot of mental, a lot of going into an isolated place, a dark place and trying to dig myself out every single month after month when starting because it did not start easy. It was very, very tough. But yeah, for anybody out there that's starting any kind of venture for themselves, whether in business or in other aspects of life, it's always going to be tough. But one thing to always remember is, everybody quits at this stage, and this is a deeper reason as to why I need to keep going and keep pressing forward. So, especially when starting too, it's like the survival of the fittest, man. That's how it is. I think we lost him. Hey, Audie, can you hear me? What's up, man?
What's good, bro? Okay, cool. No worries. Luckily, we have editing in the world of AI, so we're
Hey,
fine.
there you go. I just wanted to make sure. Am I coming across clear or am I lagging?
I don't know if it was the app. I think you're fine now. There were points. I think the voice audio was like a little chippy. No worries. We should be able to. Luckily, with the Riverside, we can fix some of that. But yeah, I'll cut one sec. I'm gonna stop that, and then we'll roll from here so I can re-record it. Cool. No, Julian, I appreciate you being vulnerable about that first phase of business, right? But I wanted to also just touch base on, I think, the space that you chose, right? You mentioned that you chose apparel. Like a lot of people said, it's a very saturated. But I guess curious. I know you grew up playing sports. You were chasing the pro athlete dream. I guess was it just like when in terms of thinking of ideas of what I can do myself better than's already out there, like it's simple as that, or is there a bigger reason as to why you chose to go down the apparel line? itself?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I mean, for myself, again, I was on that journey of pursuing, like sports and professional basketball one day, one way or another. I actually got injured in high school playing. And so for myself, when I went to college, I was like, I don't think I want to pursue that very much or, as hard as I did before, because I also understand that in the real world it's a slim few are able to obviously make it, but even then, so there's life after that even. And so for
Right.
myself, I know that I want to be able to create something in this world, and I wanted to create something that people can believe in and resonate with. And so the reason why apparel or next level to begin with was actually a combination of four different things. For myself, it was first, I loved fitness, I loved fashion, I loved business, and I loved personal development. And I thought, you know what? Why not combine all four of those pillars into one? Because I believe in this world, the way we communicate is actually more ways than one or more ways than we realize. First and foremost is obviously what we're doing here now verbally. Second is, physically through your actions, you're able to communicate to others, but also in what you wear represents, who you are, right? If you wear, a hoodie and you're sad and want to cuddle up just by yourself, that's a representation of how you're feeling internally. If you're dressed to impress and you're, suited well, you feel better about yourself. And so for the brand as a whole, it was, we want to be that voice on people's backs, for those who understand, like, hey, there's another level in life. There's always another level to hit, and they're wanting to pursue that next level sense of self in all aspects of life, not just fitness per se, but also of course physically, but mentally, and emotionally. And so in all facets, that's kind of where what next level is. It's a holistic approach to just bettering yourself every single day and committing to that, of course.
I love it. No, man, and obviously now you grew up playing sports. I guess was there obviously like you've created your own spin and your own lane within this space, but I guess whether it's Nike or Jordan or Adidas or any of these other apparel lines you grew up buying a lot, was were any of those inspirations for you? Like I like what they did here, but I want to add the Julian twist to it, or was it just you viewed it as a blank
Yeah.
canvas? Like I would want to make something that I would buy 100 times out of 100 if I was at a store.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. And so for myself, I loved the thing that got me into fitness, specifically was because I was going into basketball and that injury, I never really lifted weights heavily
Hmm.
when playing sports. Just while you're running up and down the court, everyone's lean. Hopefully everyone, well, for the most part, everybody is lean on a basketball team, right? Running up and down the court all day, every day. And so the thing that got me into fitness though was that injury, because I had gone through like rehab for, basically broke my ankle. So I'd gone to rehab for that, understood, how to lift weights. And one of the guys that was helping me out was like, hey, you know what? We should get you on a weightlifting program, everything like that through high school. And the next thing you know, I'm into college and really, just really love weight training. And so for myself, because I was involved in weight training so heavily, I had a passion for everything fitness. So that's fitness brands, influencers, everything in that space. And that's kind of what taught me and brought me knowledge about the different, apparel brands in this fitness space. And so then I ended up buying from them and being fans of them. I dove into creating content and kind of was able to work with the few as well. And then through that, I became educated on the entire process. And I realized, you know what, I think I can create something myself and put it out there. And, let's see how it does. At first, it was just a shot in the dark. Luckily enough, I was able to see it through and it kind of developed over time. But it was also realizing that, a lot of these other brands, they were pushing wellness and fitness and stuff, but not a lot of them were really diving into personal development as much as at least we want to. You'll see a lot of these brands and it's literally just their logo slapped across the chest or the back. And that's really it. For us, though, I wanted to bring meaning behind pieces. When you see our pieces, you'll see words of affirmation or anything motivational on the t-shirt. It has a deeper meaning to itself, an individual meaning to itself. And then a way that we kind of separated ourselves in the market was, I realized, hey, I love, because I just got so obsessed with the space, I really loved European fashion
Hmm.
and British designs. And so I decided, you know what? Let's grab from the source because fashion moves west all the time. So it's always kind of in like European, over there in Europe, you got Paris Fashion Week, everything, right? And it kind of sweeps across the globe, starting in the East Coast and eventually in the West Coast. And so for myself, I was like, you know what, let's just grab inspiration from there, plug it into a Western market, into our apparel space, and really separate ourselves from, a lot of these other competitors, these fast fashion guys and things like that are in the fitness space. And so that's a little bit of what it was, both mission based and also aesthetically as well. We were able to separate ourselves for sure.
For sure. And, I think, obviously, as sports fanatics and, having played sports, like there's, everyone talks about when they won the first championship, right? So I think in business, a similar milestone is like that first customer. So I guess what was it? How long into the process were you with Next Level where, you did that first batch where you saw that, invoice hit where someone paid for like, part of that initial collection? And what was like the emotions and just like the feeling to actually know that you created something that didn't exist in the world to where someone saw the value and paid for it? I guess given, you had to work the two jobs, you were in like,
Right.
you were in that grind phase, but to see that someone wanted to actually be a part of the journey, what was that emotion for you?
Yeah, when starting out, some of the first purchases were from family, of course. So,
Right.
that was cool. It just didn't hit, as deeply. But my
Right.
first order that was maybe somebody I didn't know about, that was one of those where it really shifted something in me. And I was like, man, like there's people out there who enjoy this thought that I just had spur up in my mind. And now it's this real creation and somebody actually paid their hard-earned money for this item. And so it was really life-changing for myself. And I understand, or I understood at that point, that this can really start to become something, and there's value in this. And I'm sure if there's somebody that loves this item, there's probably going to be a ton of others just like them. And so, for a lot of people, it's hard to see that through though. For whatever reason, there's comparison and all this other BS that goes into it. But for myself, it was is really just that, like, wow, there's actually somebody out there who is willing to put money on for these products. And it was just super motivating. It was super motivating. It was fulfilling in my mind that, man, all this work, at least somebody out there is able to see that effort. And yeah, it just propelled me even further. Every single collection just propelled me even further. Working harder, longer days, longer hours, having more passion about each design in every collection we launched. So it was very, very awesome. I mean, the moment it happened was, shoot, it was probably my first collection ever. Well, of course, it was my first actual collection that we released online through
Right.
social media. I noticed somebody like living out in New York or something like that just bought a t-shirt that we're selling. And
Right.
that's when I was like that's incredible. And so that is just what carried me through, and we're still rolling off that high to today.
Absolutely. And it's a daily battle, right? And so I'm just curious for you, like obviously there's multiple sides to business. There's one like you've experienced when you first start out that you're doing everything, right? And then there's the other part, once you get some momentum, you now have to like, you're overseeing the development of the apparel, like you're having to go handle the logistics. But then too, obviously you get to a point where you now have team members, right? So I'm curious for you, like what was it at what point were you like, okay, I can't do this by myself. I need to get people. And then two, how is it maybe those initial lessons you learned when it came to recruiting or even getting people to be a part of the team? What were some of the challenges and lessons you learned through that phase?
Yeah, for myself, so I'll kind of go into that whole journey from start to, hiring. In the beginning, I was doing everything as and you kind of have to. There's no other co-founder, or, this isn't a joint venture. It's just myself, my own money, everything. And so it was really when I realized is like, man, I know that there's somewhere I need to be. I know that there's somewhere I want to get to with this business. I cannot solely rely on myself. It's not realistic. And there are other people out there who have better skills than I in different avenues. And I need to make sure that if I'm going to save myself the time, I need to invest in those kinds of people. And so, that was something that helped me push through to recruit people to, luckily, people in the beginning stages, they were fans of the brand, and they kind of came in and were like, hey, I just want to help you grow this thing. I love this brand. And so I was lucky and blessed enough to have that happen. But I feel like the luck is granted towards all of the work that I still put in to make sure that it was a very promising brand that people, wanted to be a part of. And then eventually it was kind of like you have to have a such a dialed in vision of where you want to go. You have to have conviction, right? You are the founder, you are the one representing everything. right? The beginning, the present, and then the future. You're representing it all. So you have to make sure that you have enough conviction to sell the dream at all times. There were times I'm selling the dream more than I'm selling clothes at that point.
Right.
And it was because not everybody is going to buy in. And, but regardless, like there's a place you want to be, there's a target you want to hit. You have to do whatever it takes to be able to hit that target. And so, with that being said, I mean, you have to have enough conviction, enough self belief to know where you want to go. And that's what allowed me to take on these other people and have them join the team, right? I had to sell that vision, sell that dream. This is where we're going. This is what we're going to be. This is how you can play a role in this. And you're going to get a lot of no's. And that's what happened in the beginning. But again, you have to just keep that foot on the gas because there's tons of people out there who are willing to buy into what you have to share to the world. And it was just, it's a matter of time until you find that one. And then that one turns into three, turns into five, turns into 10, turns into whatever else, and it's, and then sooner or later you look up and you got a team.
For sure. And I think I just wanted to double click on one thing you mentioned that you can't do it by yourself, right? And so obviously you, Julian, right? Like you're kind of bringing this to life, right? From day zero with this brand.
Yeah.
And so at what point did you feel like you got to a point as a leader to where you're like, okay, you know what? I know I can do this really well, but I got to pass off certain tasks, right? Because it's one thing to hire. Like obviously going through the whole hiring process of like, is this person going to, fit this culture that we're trying to build? But then two, when it actually gets to you're onboarding a new employee and they're like, okay, like while it may be good enough, it might not have that Julian stamp of approval, but you also can't be in 100 places at one time. So I guess what was that mindset shift for you to like, again, obviously you're trying to build a high standard of what work product looks like, but also to like accept that look over 100 different processes that we're managing right now, if they're at least an 85 or even a 90, I'll take it so we can get to the next level. I guess how did you navigate that phase of like scaling a team?
Uh, I think that in the beginning, it is going to be a majority of a culture fit because for the most part, you don't have the funds to hire an A player. So
Right.
you're going to have to shape an A player, and it's going to take a lot of time to be able to do so. And so in the beginning, when you bring somebody in, you have to teach them the ropes, the culture. You have to spend extra time. So it's almost like you have to take two steps back to finally, take a actual step forward in your business. And so again, if you're completely bootstrapping with no capital on the side or no investor or anything like that, yeah, it's gonna take a lot of skin in the game to be able to get to that point to have somebody. But eventually, for myself, it was taking on anybody that was willing to just join in, and I had to make sure that there was a standard set. But again, you have to use your resources. I'm talking from the standpoint of like you're bootstrapping everything, like you're investing your own money into this. It is what it is. You get what you pay for, essentially. So if you get somebody free, they're not going to go up to your standards, right? But if you
Right.
have higher standards, be willing to make those sacrifices to be able to take on that B player, right? And so, now at this point, it's kind of like, look, if you're not a fit, you're not a part of this.
Right.
You have to hold that bar to a deeper standard the more people you kind of bring on because that culture needs to have a tight fit, right? It can't be loose. There can't be anybody in this business, especially in a bootstrapped company, that is slacking off, that doesn't have high standards for themselves or doesn't even respect the company that they're getting involved with, because if they don't, they are going to slow you down a lot more than you realize. And when you're bootstrapping a company, there's no time for, slack it off. There's no time to pause. There's no time for that stuff. And so I try to make sure that people moving forward know about that. Know, understand like here's what you're getting into. Are you ready for that? You know what I mean? And then, if something happens, in the future, we have a conversation. Hey, this happened. It needs to be like this. This is our standard. If you aren't fit, that's completely okay, but we cannot slow down for anybody. And again, it's kind of like you have to have that ruthless side of you a little bit because no one is going to get you there other than yourself. Like nobody else is. So you have to have that super high standard. And not everyone is going to fall for that. Not everyone's going to want to not fall for it, but believe in that or want to meet that
Right.
standard. And that's okay. Tons of people out there, just to have a glass half full kind of mindset. There's tons of people out there who are willing to be a part of something great. You just got to go out and find them.
For sure. And I guess I'm curious, like, like if you had to sum it up into like maybe three character traits that like, you would want in every next level employee or team member, what would those three be that you haven't listed yet for folks who are interested?
Yeah, no, I would say you have to have, man, You have to have obsession, obsession meaning obsession for the game, obsession for, this wildfire you're going to be a part of. You have to be obsessed with that. Because again, it's not like any normal company you are applying for. This is not, a corporate structure. This is, you don't clock in and clock out. There's going to be days where like I'll tell people, I'm like, I there was a time where I had somebody joining on and I was like, "Man, I'm gonna text you at midnight on a Saturday because I'm just thinking about things and we need to get something done." Like there's no balance. But again, as long as you make that upfront to people, that's what matters. But I'd say obsession. I'd say the second one of three has to be, you have to be resilient. You need thick skin in this. Things shift all the time. And so yeah, definitely that. And the third one, man, the third one has to just be focus. You need to be super lasered in and dialed in every single day in this world. There's so many distractions, right? It's never been easier to start a
Right.
business, but it's been harder to see it through and allow that to play out. There's so many distractions. And so you need to be dialed in and focused. You need to be resilient and you need to have obsession for this thing. And so, yeah, those three, I mean, that's kind of off the top of my head. There's a ton,
I'm
but
sure.
if I had to choose three, it definitely would be that for sure.
Most definitely. And, I think too, moving into like the other part of the conversation, I'm really looking forward to getting your thoughts on. I think, obviously one growing up, right? At least I grew up from the mindset of like, if you have like a great product and things like that, people will come to you. You don't need to like focus on advertising. You have like all these other folks, whether it's like Jobs or Musk, they talk a lot about like, you can't market something that's not good. Like, we should focus more on building a phenomenal product and then market. But you and I both know, right? In today's day and age of social media, like especially with direct to consumer brands, like, they're people not only now want the products, right, to be top tier, they also want the inside scoop of like who's the person behind the brand, right? Like you and I, we could think about like, whether it's Nike with like Jordan or even like Hormozy and Acquisition.com, everyone has like a logo or a brand that is synonymous with the founder, right? And so obviously on top of the million things you're doing, I love the content that you've been putting out where like you're highlighting the journey to $1 million, right? And so I guess I'm curious, what was the inspiration behind that and how do you personally balance, right? Where it's like, I need to like if I'm not promoting, that's less people knowing about the brand, but also too like as a founder and CEO, I actually have things that I need to do that move the needle every day. So yeah, I'm just curious, how do you view social media and like two, like what was the inspiration behind, highlighting the journey? Because, I think one, a lot of people we look up to or like we look at in the business world, they talk about it from a retro standpoint. And so I love seeing people I like outside of you and like Justin from Stan who actually talk about what is it like to actually build like in public.
Yeah, I mean, it's everything. Social media is absolutely everything, especially in, this day and age and even into the future. It's going to be more so into the future. Social media, you need a personal brand if you can start anything because again, people want to connect with brands on a deeper level these days. It's not just like you cannot market a brand out there anymore and not have some kind of personal connection to your customers. And so for myself, it was kind of understanding a little bit about that. And also too, like, hey, I enjoy creating content. So why not just put out content myself about building this brand and building this business, the ups, the downs, everything. A part of that too was a little bit of, I never had a mentor kind of going into this. I kind of did it all myself. And so I've had calls where, or, DMs and calls that turn into calls where they're like, "Hey, how do I start this thing? I want to be able to learn how to do this myself. What are some of the can you teach me the ropes a little bit about this business?" And I have a passion for that stuff and teaching people. Now, am I going to start a course? Not necessarily. I enjoy being in the thick of, building. So that's what I love, but it's yeah, social media is everything, man. And if you don't have a personal brand behind what you're building, you aren't able to connect with people because it's cool to see that they can connect with, a day in the life of whoever is building this brand that they love. And also, too, part of it is you have to represent the brand in doing so. You have to be that mirror image of, whatever it is your company is representing, right? Whether it's a supplement business or I mean, a service-based business, whatever it is, it's very important. So yeah, social media, you can reach more people. It's free advertising, so why not do it? It's all free, and if you do it right, it can scale up and change your life. So it's great. It's a great tool.
For sure. I guess I'm curious now that obviously I have no doubt you'll clear the $1 million of business sooner than later if you haven't yet. That's for you to share. But I guess Do you view it as like, once you clear that, it's like to 10 million? I guess, do you view it like that'll just be like part of your routine as a founder just to share the ins and outs of the journey? Or I'm curious, was it just up to that certain milestone you wanted to give a little inside
Yeah.
scoop?
No, I feel like it's the more everything grows, the deeper it's going to become. I mean, I've got plans where I want to, grow the brand a ton. Let's see. I think we lost him again.
Technology, man. But hey, we're back in business. So yeah, I know Julie, we were talking about how for you, I know you mentioned like it's important to be accessible to customers, your team members, and really live the brand, right? But I'm curious, I think as someone who's also worked in client facing roles like customers, while they're absolute necessity, we always run across some outlier customers that maybe don't have the nicest things to say about us. I'm just curious, as a public figure now, where you are open and accessible to customers, even just maybe earlier in the process, what was it like navigating some of those challenging situations with customers, and what did you learn from that, as you continue to scale?
Yeah, I think that everyone kind of encounters those moments where they put something out there, you think it's going to hit, and unfortunately, just some just don't mesh with it, which is completely okay. It's part of the process, and every lesson that comes your way, every loss has to turn into a lesson, of course. So I looked at everything as constructive criticism, and I realized, okay, if somebody's not liking it, there's always a little bit of truth in that, or there could be a little bit of truth in that. And so I was like, okay, well, how can we learn from that? How can this product that maybe somebody doesn't like can improve? I will take in what they say. I will analyze it, and if it's worth implementing whatever change we need to implement, then I will go ahead and do that. If not, then that's completely fine. Maybe they're just not a good fit for the brand. Because again, the brand is not for everybody. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of how the process was with dealing with that. It was kind of just, you just got to understand, hey, you're bound to get that. It's not for everybody. It's completely okay. Through that, it can turn into a lesson that you could actually apply. And so I had somebody where it was very, I mean, it's not a horrible like complaint or anything, but they wanted a t-shirt that felt a little bit more higher quality. And when we first started our oversized t-shirts, now it's like our flagship product. And they just wanted something more elevated for the cost. Right. And so I was like, okay, let me see what I can do. And I just thought to myself a little bit, and I was like, huh, not a lot of these t-shirts have a small metal tag at the bottom that kind of has it engraved. And so maybe that can be our little stamp as well, where it's a next level t-shirt if it's got that little tag at the bottom. And so we started it. I actually got their opinion on it, and they loved that idea, and we kind of rolled that out. And now that's just a part of the of the product. But there's different things. You just have to take it with a grain of salt. If you can implement it, great. If not, that's okay. Maybe it's just not a good fit. But the way it can really evolve in the rest of business and as you scale is just, again, not taking everything to heart, right? There could always be a lesson in any, complaint out there, whether it's a DM, an email, anything, both externally with customers and also even internally with the culture of the brand, right? And so that's really just the mindset you have to have, especially when you scale. It's just like taking it as a grain of salt and maybe just being like, hey, maybe I can learn something from this. And so that's kind of what helps me for sure.
Absolutely. I think, again, like, as next level, that first couple of years is a different version of the company versus what you are now. So it's natural that some people aren't going to, align with, or, even want to be a part of it. But I guess, as a founder, right, I think, especially in like,
Yeah. I mean, I think the way I see it is every potential customer, I'm trying to turn them into a lifelong customer for sure. We are focused on, growing the LTV of every individual that we bring in that, purchases from the brand. And that's really on the experience, the customer experience from start to finish. When they open up the package, what's in the package, how can they access more of the company, more of what you guys represent, be intertwined with the different, social media accounts that you guys have. And so for myself, I mean, I just look at it like we want to bring as much value to everybody that comes in. Everybody that purchases a single product, we want to bring as much value as humanly possible so that they can turn into a lifelong customer for sure. And if they don't, then again, it's just one of those things where it's like, hey, it's completely okay if your customer return rate is low. All you have to worry about is just that experience. How can you provide more? How, because it's all value based, right? especially with D2C, is like it's all value. I mean, ultimately in every company, it's all value based. So you want to make sure that you're giving enough value. And a way to measure that, of course, is through your return rate. If it's low, then that says something about, identify what that drop off is. And if you're able to, then you can capitalize on those. We're also very, very data driven. The entire business is data driven. We make data driven decisions. None of it is based off of emotion. So we try to actually see how people feel about the brand, what they love, what they dislike, different things like that. But yeah, I would say the way it works with us is we try to turn everybody into a lifelong customer for sure. I mean, I'd say first and foremost, it's always growing. So, we're growing month after month. I mean, some of our team members are incredible, see the vision, they believe in the vision. I mean, almost just as much as me, which is actually, I'm blown away by that. But man, I mean, we've got new collections coming. Of course, new products dropping with the seasons. It's exciting. But I'm expecting a ton of growth next year. And I mean, we're already halfway through the year. Oh, I mean, it's actually crazy how time flies. But I felt in the beginning that 2025 was going to be a massive year for us, a massive foundational year, and I'm super excited for what we're going to do next year as well. Just the growth in revenue, of course, which is always nice, but what we're going to do with our customers and how we're going to make them even more involved with the brand. And so part of that too is like, hey, a little bit of stay tuned as well with the page, and just hopefully everyone can tune in and enjoy the process with me. Yeah, I would say I want them to have a sense of belonging for sure. A part of why I created this was I felt there weren't many people around me who kind of shared that passion for self-development, and so I wanted to basically create this family in the sense of belonging for those who really share that passion and are not afraid to show it. So a sense of belonging. And with that, some of that is like in-person events. We want to be a part of, different fitness expos and things like that, but to host our own. I always see an opportunity to do like fitness expos out in LA and stuff like that, which is great, but I want to create my own where people can actually fly out and enjoy and meet some of the team and enjoy the brand. So, activation events is really what I'm looking forward to, especially next year, planning all of that out. I want people to also feel a sense of empowerment because that's what we're rooted in, right? Self-development, the belief that you can achieve a higher sense of self, that next level version of yourself every single day. So that's one major thing. And man, another thing, probably the last one is I want them to see. I mean, this ties into the first one, but yeah, again, maybe it is the first one again, just that they can see themselves with the brand for life. That's kind of evergreen culture we want to have rooted into our community here. And, we want them to want to bring more people into this thing. So it's really just, customer focused, just like, Amazon, the obsession of the customer is everything. And so that's kind of what we're dialed in on for sure right now. Yeah, AI plays a major role inside of the brand. I mean, I'm using some AI tool one way or another just about every day. So it plays a massive role for us, and it's huge advantage. And unfortunately for those who are not fully tapped into that, they're missing out tremendously. For the balance act, a lot of it too is making sure that I'm able to know that our internal team is very like in the know of what's going on with AI and how we can implement those systems, those tools into our company. And so, I mean, how it plays a role right now is it handles all of those, those tedious logistical data driven tasks for the most part. The creative side, that's still where we are shining a little bit. That's a majority of where we're just kind of like putting our own heads together, the vision. Of course, we use AI as like even partly as like a mentor somewhat. We've prompted it so well where it kind of understands the voice of next level. It understands what we're doing right now. It helps us, make strategic decisions, but it plays a massive role for us. And yeah, it's just making sure that everybody's in the know of what's going on with AI for sure. Yeah, with where we're at, again, it's because we're in just such a special position. A lot of our team is actually remote, but I would say it does reflect back on the culture and having a like locked in filtering process of who you're bringing into the company for sure. So again, it's just being aware that team member is aware of what they're getting involved in. So for the most part, I do still love in person. I think it's the best kind of way to click with one another. It's the best way to get things done, in my opinion. You're able to just have a room to yourself, lock all the doors, and just like dial in. So that's definitely one thing. But we do work with a lot of people who are also remote. So it's a balancing act right now, but it's really just making sure that they understand what they're signing up for, making sure the culture, that's where kind of culture is everything, right? Making sure that the person is cut out for what they're getting involved in, that they're flexible with work, that they can actually execute on the workload that they're getting provided, especially remote. And they're not kind of trying to, they're not trying to hack their way through a little bit just to get paid or something like that. So that's kind of how we're using it. In person is our number one, but unfortunately, we just can't do that because everybody lives all over. So we have to make sure that the culture is right. If we do have a role that opens up and somebody is not around to work with us in person. Of course. Yeah. Yeah. I think for myself, one thing that I'm trying to improve on really quickly is it would be making decisions even faster. So it's my decision making process, developing that out a lot quicker. And then on a personal side, it's more so like diving deep into my own like faith. So, things like that. I'd say those two for sure. Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I would say that you have to be the one thing that could be applicable to whatever avenue you are pursuing is you have to be absolutely obsessed with the process, and you have to be delusional enough to understand that and have the self-belief that you can actually make it happen. Like you have to tap into that sense of delusion. And the reason why I call it delusion is because it has to be so ridiculous. Your self belief has to be so ridiculous that other people will recognize it as being delusional. So you have to have unrelenting self belief in whatever it is that you're going to do. I mean, is there anything that I would change? Not necessarily, but I would just say self belief and understanding you and getting you dialed in first is most important, your mindset. For sure. Awesome, man. Well, thank you again for having me. It's been nothing but a pleasure spending this time with you, man. And I'm excited where you're going to take podcasting as well. So thank you again for having me, man. Most definitely.